Give it up for Tiger Band. I got to spend 4 fantastic years in college in Tiger Band. And during that time, we got to travel up and down the East Coast, following Clemson football, basketball, and even a little bit of Clemson soccer. I need your help, though, debating which one of those team sports requires the most teamwork. I need you to make noise if you would agree when I say a sports name, if you think that requires the most teamwork out of those 3. If you think soccer requires the most teamwork, let me hear it. Yeah. If you think basketball requires the most teamwork, make noise. If you think football requires the most teamwork, let's hear it. Oh, in the South, that was actually weaker than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go with football because I'm a little bit biased towards football. And we're going to compare football and team sports as a whole to what you experience in your professional lives, in your businesses, and in your organizations. At the top, you have a forward-facing individual, a head coach, that is the decision maker here, maybe like the CEO or the founder of your organization. Beneath that person, in successful teams, there are assistant coaches like coordinators, offensive, defensive, and special team coordinators. Just like in successful businesses, you have vice presidents or department heads. Beneath them, you have individual specific position coaches that are coaching up the players to deliver the product on the field, just like you might have managers who are coaching up your employees to deliver the best product to your customers. In my time as a doctor of physical therapy student in Charleston at the Medical University, we got to interview the local Charleston physical therapy private practice owners. We got to sit down with them for an hour each week during our final semester, and we got to ask them all the questions we could think of so that we were set up for success as young entrepreneurs. One of the questions we wanted to ask, definitely before we graduated, was, what do you look for in new hires? And then also long term, we wanted to know, what should we look for in new hires so that we can help build great businesses? The most common question they asked was, did you play team sports? And their implication of that question was, if you played team sports, you knew how to work as a team member. You knew how to put the team above your own desires and your own needs. And you knew how to collaborate with others and how to elevate them above what they could normally do on their own. A couple of those business owners actually let us in that recently before that interview, they'd had to let 2 individuals go, and both of those individuals, interestingly, had not played team sports. I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So let's define what a team sport is. The brilliant people at Oxford would say that team sport is a physical activity that requires a skill in which you're competing against others for the entertainment of an audience. There's 3 pieces to that. Physical activity with the skill, competition, and then engaging with an audience and entertaining them. Personally, I did not know how to answer this question. And part of that might have been that I was devaluing my own experience. And maybe as a whole, we tend to overlook one of the most impactful team sports of all. By that definition, competitive marching band is a team sport. It's a physical activity that requires a lot of skill, and especially at the high school level, is competitive against other schools at the state level, at the national level. And then it definitely engages audiences like what you just experienced. And maybe there's an element to teamwork in marching band that we might be overlooking that could be of value to you as you are a leader in your business or your organization. In my final year in Tiger Band, I was the section leader on the Clemson drumline. And then that spring, went on to play drum set for the pet band. The pep band's made up of about 50 members, where the full Tiger Band's about 400. And I vividly remember one of the final basketball home games. The MC called for 10 random band students to come down onto the court for a competition. We didn't know each other. I went down there, I was one of the 10, and I at least did not know half of the 10 that were left. We came from a very large group in Tiger Band. And then in pep band, you don't have much time together. You show up to the game, you play the game, and you go home. And he brought us down to compete against 10 students from the student section, from the front row of the student section, who all sat together, came from the same social circle, likely camped out for tickets together, which meant that they also probably lived together. And the competition was something silly but entertaining. It was for the 10 members to link arms, link hands, and they had to pass a hula hoop down the line, not letting it touch the ground and not breaking physical connection with the person next to you. You had to get that hula hoop down all 10 members, then the 10th person had to run, grab a basketball, and make a shot on their side of the court. They gave us about 15 seconds to figure out our strategy and our roles in that environment, and then the horn sounded. The audience starts to cheer for different sides, and then we're all crowding in, trying to get this hula hoop over us. And I remember this hula hoop coming over the top of me more like my teammates were shoving it over the top of me. And I'm getting through it. They're yelling because I volunteered to be the 10th person who would take the shot. They're yelling, "Go, go, get the ball, get the ball." So I run down the court, grab the basketball. There were no officials, so I might have walked in the process, but I laid it up. The ball goes through the net, and I turn around over my right shoulder to look across the court because I'm a slightly competitive person, and I wanted to see if we were going to win. To my surprise, not only had we won, they weren't even halfway done yet. We had 10 people who had little to no relationship with one another compared to those who knew each other very well, and somehow came up with a much faster plan, executed it in a very pressurized environment, and did so at a high level. But we didn't develop that during pep band. We did so 4 to 6 months earlier without knowing it. And that planted this seed in my mind that maybe there was something special about the way that marching bands develop teams. Teamwork is not unique to band. Any group of individuals that comes together for a common purpose does so through teamwork. But there's something about the environment in marching band that allows it to excel. First, there is a no bench mentality in marching band. What I mean is there's not a bench for your second string and third string to sit on. Everyone has to perform all the time. That means your weakest member of the organization has to perform at the same standard of excellence as the strongest member. That also means that if somebody's missing in a rehearsal or in a performance, you don't have a second string to call upon to substitute in for them. Much like in our small businesses, if somebody's absent, you have to distribute responsibilities. And this level of accountability leads to number 2, an increased focus on leadership development. In my junior and senior years of high school, in high school marching band, I went through more formal leadership development training than I did for the next decade and into my professional career. We spent leadership retreats together. We had weekly leadership meetings. And with that, we had to collaborate in team building activities. This is one of those fun activities. We had to be vulnerable with one another. High schoolers, sweaty high school band members having to take their shoes off and build a shoe tower together in a time-intensive environment. That involved collaboration, it involved problem solving, and then doing so for a common goal, and doing that against other people in your band so that it's slightly competitive and you build a sense of competition. And if we go back with that leadership development, that's really where this goes to the next level, because say Tiger Band, for example, they might have 400 members. How are they going to accomplish excellence when there's definitely not that many staff members? That's a little bit more than 4 times the size of the football team. So if you think back to what we talked about in terms of a football team having a hierarchy of head coaches, assistant coaches, and position coaches, band is the same way. It's the exact same structure, too, in your business. You have a head band director, you have a percussion director, a color guard director, then you have individual instrument instructors. But beyond that, to handle that large quantity of students, it comes down to the student leaders. And in your organizations, it comes down to building up leaders within, because they're the ones that truly set the culture. And once you have that leadership from the inside out, that comes to the third point of what makes the marching band environment unique. And that is respect for all the roles in the room. I came out playing snare drum. This does not have a beautiful tone. You don't want your son playing snare drum for hours and hours on end at night, practicing in his room. My mom is here. She's a saint for putting up with that all through high school. We might get a little bit of social credibility for being on the drum line. Clemson's drum line might even get this really cool performance before the fourth quarter of every game in front of the student section to hype up the audience. But we know very well we need the trumpets. We need the woodwinds. We need the low brass, giving that bass tone so that we can have a strong sound and make actual music together that moves people. In your businesses and organizations, building the accountability, then leadership from the inside out, and then developing a culture where every role in the building is respected equally, that is what will take you to the next level. So next time you are looking for talent, I want you to think, make sure you include marching band in the conversation. Thank you. Hit 'em, Tiger Band.